Hello and welcome to AWS Community Day 2020 ANZ. I'm Jeff Barr, VP and Chief Evangelist for AWS, coming to you from my home office in Seattle, Washington in the Pacific Northwest. Happy to be able to speak to you today remotely. This is actually my third talk to an ANZ Community Day. My first two were local and live. The third, due to today's circumstances, means I have to be remote. Sure wish I could be there in person with you, but we all know how things are right now. I'd like to give a huge thanks to the AWS heroes that helped to put all this amazing content together. A guest on us are ML hero, Nathan, an IoT hero, and then Peter, a serverless hero. These three folks and many others within the community have worked really hard to assemble some awesome content and to make sure that you've got 2 days just chock full of information and learning opportunities on the latest and greatest AWS technologies. If you happen to be sharing any of this content or these sessions on social media, the official hashtag is AWS Community Day ANZ, or Z, I guess sometimes you say in Australia. So let me give you a bit of background. Again, I'm Jeff. I have been in tech since the early 1970s, believe it or not. Back in junior high school, we had a PDP-8 mini computer accessible from our junior high. We learned in a 2-week course how to program in BASIC. I immediately took to this, found it was just super fun, super interesting, had a lot of power at my fingertips, wanted to learn more. Now, one thing, if you didn't exist back in the 1970s, we had kind of an information shortage. It was really hard to find out information about technical subjects. We had no internet, we had no search engines, we had no online bookstores, school libraries, public libraries, all not very good sources of information. So despite wanting to learn more and being really eager, really interested, didn't have a way to do it. Fortunately, the math teacher at our junior high took myself and a friend to a bookstore downtown on a weekend. We were lucky enough on the campus of MIT to find some original programming books for that PDP-8. I still have those books. They are just wonderful touchstones to my earliest days in tech. I haven't really opened them for decades, but they are still wonderful memories of how I got my start. That information shortage is, of course, long since gone. We're now in the midst of clearly an information glut where we have to spend a lot of time just filtering all these different things that are competing for our time and for our attention. Lots of amazing things happened. I got a bachelor's degree in computer science, got married, had 5 children, joined Amazon in 2002, started writing the AWS news blog in 2004, coming up on the 16-year anniversary later this year. Promoted a couple times, most recently to VP and Chief Evangelist in 2018. We all know the whole world has changed. For me, the world changed at the beginning of March. I was on a business trip through the Nordics. I had visited 3 countries inside of a week. Word came down late in the week that entry to the US was going to be restricted and that Seattle itself was going to be placed under a strict quarantine and a work from home order. Rushed home and, like all of you, had to very, very quickly adapt to something brand new and different. I'd already done quite a bit of working from home, so that wasn't a huge change. We did find, as my coworkers, we started to adjust and adapt to how things would be in this new world. Realized we had to actually communicate better, had to find some new tools, new methods, new vocabulary, sometimes even new expressive mechanisms to communicate properly. Some of us found that we were working more hours or different hours, and we all agreed that less certainty, less stability, and probably more change than any of us had seen in our lifetime. And for me, I'm going to actually be 60 this week, and that's a lot of time. And just, to be in these uncertain times, I fully get it and realize that we're all just kind of understanding and processing this unique and just unusual situation. Now, one thing, when you talk to Jeff Bezos, people often ask Jeff, they say, "So Jeff, tell me what's changed." And Jeff certainly pays attention to technology trends and to changes, but Jeff being a really smart and being something of a contrarian thinker, Jeff will also often say, well, it's more interesting to pay attention to the constants. And so one of my favorite quotes from Jeff, he says, when you have something that you know is true, even over the long term, you can afford to put a lot of energy into it. So this made me think, in this new situation, in this new world we're in, what are the kind of things that have actually not changed? So as you might be able to tell, I'm a real fan of learning. I hope that I'm a lifelong learner, and I encourage that in myself and my family and pretty much everybody that I meet. No matter what kind of situation we find ourselves in, we do need to actually deliver on results, whether that's results for ourselves, our job, within our family. Results still matter. Because we're doing a lot more communication online, communication really matters. We might find that the subtleties that we once understood when we were speaking face-to-face to colleagues or to strangers, the ability to pick up on subtle aspects of body language, that isn't there. But the necessity for us being able to be incredibly good communicators, that really hasn't changed. Innovation, I think, matters more than ever. We're in this really interesting time of the world where a lot of things that we thought, well, we're going to make this slow progress toward the future, suddenly we're being asked to make gigantic progress just all at once. And the abilities that we have to adjust and adapt and thrive, we probably had those before, so they're not changing. It probably matters more than ever at this point. And if you find yourself on somewhat unsteady ground, totally understood, totally okay. We're all going to adjust, we're all going to adapt. I think we're all going to thrive for the long term. So this conference is for you. As you know already, this is a virtual conference. It's all designed for you. All this amazing content that all the presenters have worked so hard to put together. My hope for you, you're going to be able to take it all in. You're going to have the opportunity to learn something new. Beyond learning, I really hope you're going to do something with this content. Personally, I like to be a hands-on learner. As I'm reading about something, I can read for a while. I get somewhat impatient. I just want to get my hands on the keyboard and on the mouse and see something in action. Whatever is your learning method, your learning style, I'd say go for it, but take the things that you're going to hear today and tomorrow, act upon them. One of my productivity secrets, I call it getting double value. There's a lot of times when you are doing one thing, and as a beneficial side effect, you can get a second kind of value from it. And I think learning is often fits into this category. As you learn something new, take some good notes, document what you do, write it up for your colleagues, write it up for yourself. If you have the opportunity to share it publicly in a blog post or somewhere else, share that publicly. So that energy that you put into learning, maybe it's even going to keep you a little bit more focused and dedicated to the task because of your thinking that, okay, I need to actually master this to the point where I will actually think about sharing. Would also encourage you in whatever ways possible, maybe by tracking down our hashtags or through other chats and so forth. Track down the speakers, track down the attendees, reach out, connect with us. I love to hear from the folks that have listened, and anything that you can do to find and connect with speakers. I'll always appreciate it. You might always think that we are speaking to a big audience and we might hear from hundreds of people. Not always the case. Sometimes that one or two pieces of connection and feedback, that's what it really takes to let us know that we're really reaching the right folks in the audience. So I'd encourage you never, ever hesitate to reach out to a speaker, a performer, an artist, and just let them know you enjoyed the performance, you learned something. Let them know what it meant to you. It's always appreciated. Okay, so one of the things that we did in preparation for this, I was actually asked to put together a little bit of a overview of how I like to work. What is a day in the life of Jeff Barr? So kind of to give you a little sense, here's what my last couple weeks have been like. We're just a few weeks past the summer solstice here in Seattle. That means the sun comes up really, really early. By about 4:45, daylight starts to appear, so I tend to get up with the sun. By about 5:30, I'm up. My dog is also up, so I like to just get a great start to the day. I give her a 1 to 3 mile walk, listen to some podcasts, maybe something fun and something tech, something entertaining. Get everything going, get my head cleared, get ready for a really, really good day. I routinely review my calendar. I'll sometimes review it once the night before, but I do a thorough review that day. One thing that I found that helps me to be productive is if you remember the old days of magnetic hard drives and this process called defragging, I also look at my calendar with the intent of how can I defrag? How can I take all the things that are somewhat related and can I compress those down to one end of the calendar? And can I arrange so that all the other things are contiguous and at the other end of the calendar if possible? I never do this in a way that's going to inconvenience or disrupt anybody else. But defragging the calendar is a simple thing that can help you to find larger blocks of contiguous time to actually do your job. So review my calendar, defrag. I always maintain a to-do list. Sometimes it's handwritten, sometimes it's been a mind map, sometimes it's a Word document. I still experiment, still haven't found the perfect model for it that has worked for me for the long term. But I do find that having a to-do list is just an essential aspect of being organized and being productive. I'll generally sit off and I'll work until probably about 5 o'clock. One thing I really enjoy working from home is this ability to interleave my work and my personal. And if you were to take a look at my to-do list, which I've got buried here somewhere on my desk, if you were to quickly scan across my to-do list, you'd find that it's actually just a combination of a couple work things, a personal thing, a couple more work things, a personal thing. I call this interleaving. And one thing that it helps me to do is it helps me to keep a nice harmony between my work and the rest of my life. It makes sure that I don't prioritize one over the other. Helps me to get everything just done in a reasonable amount of time. Generally don't work any nights, don't work any weekends, with the usual exception of I'd say the 4 to 5 weeks before reInvent. Usually November is a pretty busy month for all of us, where I might have 10, 15 blog posts in production at any given time. I'm pushing those all ahead in parallel and need to do my best just to always be iterating and creating and revising and never to be a bottleneck to the production process. But other than that, usually by 5 o'clock, I'm going to wrap it up. Probably don't even take a look at email or social media again after that. Within the space of a day, I have to apportion my time between a lot of different things. I, like all of us, I do a lot of email. I consume and I create quite a bit in the way of social media. I'm pretty active on Twitter. My main actual job is to write blog posts. That probably, I'm going to guess, is probably, I'm going to say around 70% of my time. I've actually started doing a lot of video work, and now that I can do videos from my home office like I'm doing right now, it's actually a very productive way to create content. I work with our product teams. I review their documents. We call them PR FAQs, press release FAQs. I probably review 1 or 2 of those per week with the teams, so I get a heads up about what they're working on, have an opportunity to ask some questions, also give them some feedback. Because I'm busy on social media, I get a lot of connection requests. I'm always happy to connect with and chat with folks. Sometimes I need a little bit of extra special help with some aspect of AWS. Happy to do that if the normal communication models and support vehicles don't work. Please think of me as your tier 3 support rather than the first person to turn to. I am not infinitely scalable, and that's sometimes a challenge when you are well known. And I also find it, even though I don't manage a team, I'm an individual contributor, I make up for that by doing mentoring. I'm mentoring 3 folks internally and usually 2 or 3 external folks as well. So happy to do that. And one of the things I'm going to talk about a bit later is I think we all have a responsibility within our career to make sure that we're helping there to be a next generation of whatever we do. We need to make sure that there is a next generation following up behind us and that they get the same opportunities to learn and progress that we did. Okay, let me give you a really quick overview of my blogging process. I sometimes do a full presentation just on blogging, and this is just one quick slide from that. We have a document at Amazon we call the PR FAQ, Press Release and Frequently Asked Questions. This is the document that I review in order to get an initial understanding of a new product or a major feature. So we ask any of the teams that would like a blog post to create a ticket for us, to attach that PR FAQ, attach any key messages, give us product access. We also insist that all the communication go through that ticket so that we centralize everything in the ticket so as to not have any opportunity to lose important messages. We get together occasionally and we prioritize all the different requests and decide which of those are going to get blog posts. We have several different bloggers now working on the AWS News blog. And so we all look at the incoming list, we express our interests, and we apportion those out according to our interests and load balancing and desires to learn new tech and familiarity with existing tech as well. Then we write the post. I always try to write the post as if I'm a real customer. I think of our customer as I write it. I always insist on using the service. One of my tricks, I could say, I don't think it's a secret because I'm willing to totally share it. I like to create a mind map. I use an open source tool called FreeMind to create a mind map of the pure FAQ and the other information that I learn about the new service. This really helps me to organize all the different facts and the messaging and make sure that I really have this high-level overview of all the different facts. Usually by the time I create the mind map, there's far too much information in there for a single blog post. But putting it all in there, make sure that I didn't miss some important detail that really might shape the entire concept of how I'd like to blog. Once I've got all this information, I write the blog post, I take all the screenshots, do all the diagrams, generate a PDF. We route it internally using Amazon Workdocs, do a couple of review cycles with all of the interested parties. And at that point, we're ready to go. We await the launch day. The team gives us the go-ahead. We publish the post and we share it on social media. So this is the basic process that I do, as well as the other bloggers do when they're writing posts for the news blog. We had another great question about remote work and a couple thoughts on this if you'd like. So there's been this general sense that yes, being able to work fully remotely is the future, and I think everybody thought, well, we'll gradually get to that over the course of I don't know, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever it might happen to be. But this sense would go gradual. But instead, for a lot of us, what happened was just this edict came down, whether from our company or from our governor, that said, guess what? Tomorrow you are now working from home full time. And I was okay with that because I was probably 50-50 already. For some of my colleagues, it's been a little bit more of an adjustment. But the thing I love about my colleagues and about people in general, I have to say, is people are actually, by and large, pretty adaptable and pretty flexible. We see that the world has changed and we do our best to adapt along with it. So seeing a lot of adaptation, seeing people be really open and flexible and receptive to these just new ways of working. We did learn pretty early on that I'd say the first month or two, we had a little bit of communication challenges just because we were so used to being in close proximity to each other. And sometimes you'd learn things through formal meetings. Other times you'd learn just by just kind of randomly running into folks in the hallways or the elevator or while you're having lunch. We learned to be more obvious and explicit and intentional communicators, which I think that's all really good. All of us, I think we've become better at using all this technology. I look around my office and I've got this camera and a teleprompter and some lights and this green screen, and I'm using some really cool software called OBS that helps me to pull it all together and do these fairly reasonably high quality videos without even leaving my desk. So learning how to use tech better, I think, has been a really interesting byproduct, benefit, if you will, of this unique situation. My home office has effectively become a TV studio, all these wonderful new pieces of tech that are in there. On the job, what are we seeing? So I've been an Amazon Workspaces user for over 5 years at this point. Amazon Workspaces is a virtual desktop environment. And the thing I love about Workspaces is if I am at the office, if I'm on my home desktop, if I'm on my laptop, all of those devices, they're simply connections or portals to my virtual desktop running in the cloud. Being able to do this on Workspaces was a wonderful benefit both to a lot of my colleagues who suddenly had to go virtual and their laptops weren't necessarily powerful enough, and also for our customers. A lot of customers had to move their workforces wholesale from on-premises to a Workspaces-based environment. and they've been able to do that very quickly and very successfully as well. We'd all, within Amazon and across our customer base, we've been using Amazon Chime as one of our conferencing and communication and messaging tools. Usage certainly shot up. And one of the interesting things that happened is that Chime actually has a very well-developed video feature. When we were just using it pre-lockdown, we never ever thought to be share on video. And without any explicit order, we all just realized, you know what? We need to see each other. And we just automatically, we all started turning on video and making sure that we had this visual connection to our colleagues. So great question about remote work. And I know workspaces and Chime have both seen increased usage as in these new circumstances. So let's wrap up. Let's talk a little bit about moving into the future. Now, early on, I got together with some of my colleagues and we said, okay, this is going to be kind of weird and kind of rough. And what do we do to help? And I think we came to this consensus. We said, well, we're not going to learn any new skills right away. That's going to take us more time. We just need to take the things that we're already pretty good at and just do those even better. We need to be more intense and with more purpose at those initial set of skills. And of course, over the intervening months, I think we've all learned to get even better at conferencing and video production. And as I said, using all this great tech. But our initial thought was, we don't have time to do that. And we're disrupted enough already. So let's just accelerate and be awesome at the things we already know how to do. As I think about how do we make sure that we have our next generation of tech, I give this a lot of thought. I'm now, you'd say, I guess late career is the polite way to say when someone is at my particular age. I think a lot about making sure that we have a great next generation of developer advocates and bloggers and developers and whatever skill. It's so important that those of us that were lucky enough to grow up with this tech and had great privilege to learn about it early and to be able to earn a living doing it and to build up a little bit of a reputation as we do so. We need to make sure that these next generations have those same opportunities. I think it's on all of us to teach, to very explicitly and obviously lead by example, make ourselves open to becoming mentors both inside and outside of our organizations. And like I said, give others the same opportunities that we were lucky enough to have. I also think of this in terms of leaving space. I only came up with this phrase, I think, a year or so ago, but I first thought about this in the context of the news blog. So as we were growing the news blog from me being the only blogger to having a whole team of bloggers, it would be too easy for me to look at all the upcoming launches and to say, well, I've been doing this the longest and I know everything the best, so I'm going to just put my hands around all the best stuff and leave all the smaller things for everybody else. But I realized that was not fair and it wasn't the right thing to do. And I've found that as a very senior person, one of the most important things you can do for this next generation, sometimes you almost literally have to step back a bit and say, yes, for sure I could do this, but I need to just invite those others in and give them that space to learn and to succeed, just as someone else hopefully did that for me when I was in their position. So if I could ask those of you that are in that mid and senior levels of your career, think about all these ways that you can encourage this next generation of whatever it is that you happen to do or whatever they might happen to do. Help them out, mentor them, leave them some space to grow. With that, I think I'm just about out of time and out of space. Again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please enjoy the event. I'm going to do my best to stay online and watch some additional presentations as the time zones permit. Thanks for watching and hope to hear from you sometime soon. Bye-bye.